Welcome back to our Election 9 coverage with partnership of iHeartRadio and Student News Live. I'm Emilia Rivadeneira, and I'm here today with Annabelle Rossi, junior studying political science and president of the Students for Immigrant Rights and Equality at NC State, and Sanaya Sanders, junior studying science, technology, and society, and IA ambassador at the African American Cultural Center at NC State. Thank you so much for being here today. How are you guys doing?
Frankly, feeling a little, anxious about tonight, but hopefully all things go well.
Yeah.
Should be great.
Yeah, same. I would say I feel a little anxious, like a little anxiety. But overall, I'm just tired. Just came from dance practice, but making it work.
Yeah. And well, this program tonight, we're basically looking back on this election season. And I wanted to ask you guys, what were the main issues and like the most important issues for you during the election season?
Okay, cool. I guess I'm taking the floor first, guys. Well, I would like to say I am president of Rise University here on NC State campus. So the main things that we have been focused on as an advocate, Youth Wave here at NC State University, go back. We've been focused on like Project 25, definitely because there's a lot of things that's going on with that. They're trying to take away education for K through 12. They're trying to take financial aid, grants, and things like that. They're trying to take away Medicaid, any type of like government help that could basically help low income families or minority families.
Yeah.
For me, more so, like you mentioned before, I'm president of Immigrant Rights and Equality, Students for Immigrant Rights and Equality. So definitely a big thing as a daughter of an immigrant, championing those immigrant rights. Recently, last semester, we attended a rally in DC against HB 10, a law that would allow or mandate NC State sheriffs to cooperate with ICE, which is something that is deeply impactful and hurtful on the immigrant community. So just making sure we have those leaders in place to prevent those types of bills. I'm also a member of the Row chapter of Latinos por Una Comunidad, Lambda Pi Chi Sorority Incorporated, and we also fight for those same women's rights, immigrant equality, those types of issues, more so affecting women of color. So those two things were a very big facet.
Yeah. And do you think that the issues that you guys just mentioned right now, do they kind of reflect the overall issues that college students, specifically here in North Carolina, are just kind of, it's in the center of the debate, specifically this election season?
I definitely think reproductive rights is a giant thing on the ballot this season, especially with those young women in university or those who need access to those specific reproductive freedoms. Abortion is a very big thing on the ballot, and that matters to a lot of people here, and especially a lot of people our age, even those that aren't in university. I think that has been the pinnacle thought in a lot of young people's minds.
Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely agree on that. Even with, like I said, being with Rise, partnership with MPHC, as well as Alpha Phi Alpha, and then Miss Braxton Simpson. We've been definitely talking about how. I'm sorry, y'all. I'm parched.
No, it's okay.
Woo.
It's all good.
But we definitely been talking about these major things that can definitely impact a lot of minority races, ethnicities of that factor. It could affect a lot of things, and I feel like that's a lot of things that make us anxious, especially when you talked about immigrants as well. Because y'all are a minority as well. And them taking away all those resources, it feels like we stepping back into the 1960s a little bit. You know what I'm saying? So I'm just hey, let's not do that. We came this far from your ancestors, my ancestors, other people's ancestors, and minority communities that we come too far to let it go back. And why are we making such an effort to want to move back when we came so far as America, as far as being back on our forefounders? Yes, the United States in general has forefounders, but we also have forefounders that paved the way for us to have the things that we have today.
Yeah. And are you guys first-time voters this year or?
Yes.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And what I know that you have talked about like all the issues that kind of resonate with you guys personally. But is there any specific kind of event or just in general that motivated you to just like, go to the ballots in this election and like motivated you on like a personal level to just like show up and like, make
Mm.
your voice heard through the ballot?
Honestly, I'm gonna say because I feel like it just again what we
Mhm.
put on is basically what we said. You know what I mean? Immigrants, minority communities. Hello, like what's not clicking, Stephen? You know? So it's like with that going on, we just don't want to take a step back, a
Yeah.
way step back, like going over a century. Like we do not have time for that. And honestly, like I don't know how I would react. You know what I mean? If it just goes we really go opposite 10 times back from where we came from, and it's just gonna feel like what was this all for? Like what did we do all this for? Why
Mhm.
why did we change all of these bills and putting all these implications for change? We talking about revolution, we talk about evolution, and it's just like what's the point if you're gonna just strip it all away from us just so you can feel like you have a sense of control?
Yeah. And then building upon that, like you asked, like what specifically inspired you to go to the ballot like this season? Um, I think it's very impactful when you look at a certain candidate that stands up there and tears down these specific minority communities, targets someone who is your father, targets someone who is your neighbor, calling them on all sorts of like senseless names
Mm-hmm.
and just derogatory terms. Um, when we go to the ballot or we go to cast our ballot, we're not just voting for us, we're voting for those who can't vote. I have many friends who are here on DACA status. They cannot vote and they cannot have their voices heard in a country that they've grown to love and that they plan on staying in. They can't put their vote in for that future. So it's also going to represent those who can't represent themselves.
Yeah, building off that, I would definitely say also a program that Rise put on. I know I keep mentioning Rise, but listen, if y'all not involved on this campus, come on, come on, so we can talk about this, okay? But we did a presentation, document slash movie night of talking about how there's veterans, there's people that have disabilities and things of that sort, or a part of certain communities where they're taking away their ballots, they're taking away their casted vote because either they haven't voted in the past election or they just, doing random selection of taking people's ballots out. And I feel like, that's a issue in today's um, present day. So it's just like, I feel like me as the youth, knowing what's going on politically, knowing what to advocate for and why I'm voting, it's a stepping front regardless if it's my first time, my second time, my 10th time. It's still putting in, I want change and I'm putting in the effort to put my time out of my day to make it happen. So with that, also you gotta also ensure that the fact that, hey, I did this, so then when I talk to my kids, whatever, um, they know that their mom did this or whatever. And even when I seen today working with the voting, people taking their kids so they can see this in action. I think that's a really good idea.
Um, and kind of turning into, like we are all part of Gen Z. And we have seen a lot of just like political analysts talked about like Gen Z voter turnout and just like youth turnout in general this election and like just like its impact on like the 2024 election. And I just wanted to ask you guys, do you think your vote matters?
I think most definitely. Because it's not just like the physical ballot you cast in, it's the influence you have over those around you. Like, if I go to my friends and I say, hey, I'm going to go vote, it's like you're putting that influence on them to go.
Yep.
It's your intention to go vote. Like, I've been to a couple of Rise events myself. It's just the power in that room and the influence that seeps from these events. Like, any voter registration events, yeah, sometimes it'll get annoying if like the fifth person a day comes up and asks you if you registered to vote, but it's just kind of that, I don't want to say peer pressure, but just that like nagging to take on that civic responsibility and that civic duty.
Yeah.
But I definitely think it matters because it's not just like the physical ballot you hold in your hand, but the mindset that you give upon others.
Yeah. Kind of building off of that, I wouldn't say like it's a kind of peer pressure type thing.
Mm-hmm.
You were advocating. Or basically saying, I think it's really just you can say that you are a part of a change when it comes to being a part of voting election,
Mm-hmm.
especially if, like me, it's my first time. I can say I was a part of that election to make a change. So, regardless if it goes this way or that way, I can say I did something instead of just saying, oh, I want things to change, or I want XYZ, or I want this person to represent us as a community. Instead of just saying I'm putting it into action, I can say that I'm about that action. You know
Yeah.
what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like that's a great thing to do, and being a change advocate, a youth changing advocate in my community, and say, I was there at that time and I also did something, instead of saying, oh, I'm not going to vote because, you know what I mean? It's, regardless, they're going to do what they're going to do. True that. But even after the election, we still have a voice. You know what I mean? So even after the election, we're still putting verbal action into actual physical action when we, post on Instagram, reposting, putting things on social media, advocating our, you know, basically exercising our Second Amendment. You know what I mean? So, regardless, put action to your verbal
Mm-hmm.
actions.
Yeah. Um, and kind of building up of that, and what you guys have mentioned about, like your vote matters. Why do you think just like youth participation in the election also matters in general? Why do you think like just younger generations showing up to the polls, like it just makes an impact in just like how the election and the landscape will look?
Yeah, so I'm like the older generations, they're very set in their ways, and just statistically, the policies that they favor and the policies that they care about are policies that are not exactly the best for the younger generation, and we're the ones that are most likely going to have to live with the ramifications of those actions for the long run. Like say Supreme Court justices, that's a very good example.
Mm-hmm.
Like we're going to have to deal with the ramifications of a like say a conservative Supreme Court justice for the next like 3 to 4 decades.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I think the youth vote is also very influential because we are kind of the generation that's kind of mastered the various forms of communication, whether that be verbal, social media, like that type of marketing stuff, and just being able to influence each other one on one and have those difficult conversations. Because I also think Gen Z has a greater way to connect emotionally. Like
Mm-hmm.
you can see how some of the older generations
Yeah.
kind of tend to get away from the emotional side of
Mm-hmm.
politics.
Mm-hmm.
But that's really what politics is all about under the skin,
Mm.
is the emotions of it.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah. That was some great, very good points. I would definitely also say, not just, the fact that, we are the younger generation and we're building it for the people after us, and we're dealing with, the ramifications of things. I would definitely also add on to that,
Mm-hmm.
that when it comes to that, we are the younger generation that is becoming the older generation that's setting what's the generation that's happening after us.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? So you got to think how we're in college right now and we're electing. We're setting forefront for the generation after us that's in K through 12 right now. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? So it's like we're becoming the older generation. So we're setting a tone for the next generation that's coming after us to elect for the next election.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like we're just setting tone. Like you said, the older generation, they're not going to see the way we see when it comes to education. It comes to, um, like you said, political. When it comes to parenting, things like
Mm-hmm.
that, we don't see the same things as our parents did back then. So, like you said, there wasn't an emotional side to it. It is what it is, and that's it. And they are also very like rigid. So it's like the pieces never, try
Mm-hmm.
to morph into each other. So I think with us voting, it does matter because we're setting a tone for the next generation in order to make it safe and also innovative for them. We have a lot of creativity, innovative. Every generation that comes, they're going to have different ways of thinking that can make the place and environment that we live in more better.
And you both are part of just student organizations on campus that have been active all throughout election season, kind of
Mm-hmm.
like either educating college students about election stuff or just like being active in general.
Mm-hmm.
during the election season. And so I wanted to ask you guys, what role does these like student organizations on campus, or just like what role these groups kind of play in just election season stuff?
Okay, cool. I would say definitely with Rise. I definitely feel like me as a president's role at Rise here at State. Definitely with that, I feel like I think 2 weekends ago, we had Vote Fest, getting the advocation out there to show like you can still have fun and do activities and things like that, but also raising the awareness that hey, we need to vote, we need to be that change youth wave for our community. You know what I mean? Raising awareness while having fun and being a community while doing it. Another thing with iAmbassador, we have a lot of what's on the table events. So we talk about political things in a safe environment, where we respect each other's biases and opinions. Sorry. So with a respectful manner to talk about it. And then also we have the MLK March coming up next year, to talk about that as well. And then we have time to talk and handle like how we're feeling at that moment. So yeah.
Yeah, for Sire, we've been trying to do a lot of different events in collaboration with other bigger political advocacy orgs because we're just on the smaller side. So leading up to the election, we did have a collaboration with NCSU Dems, and we had we made it somewhat cute. Like we were like, hey, come paint tote bags, and then also come make your voting plan. Like, come learn more about the candidates in your area. Are you not registered? We'll get you registered. Like that type of stuff. Because it's always a trend with like younger adults, younger people, especially like freshmen, like sophomores, those getting registered for the first time. You got to have something else to kind of reel them in, because sometimes voting is scary. Sometimes it's hard to navigate that by yourself. We also did a collaboration event with this local nonprofit here in Raleigh called La Fuerza. One of our alumni works there as an intern, so she was able to help us out a bit. Shout out to Kelly. She's great. We did a voter registration table in Tally, and then when people came up to the table in order to like spin our little prize wheel, they had to tell us their voter plan if they were already registered. So where you're going to vote, when are you going to vote, are you going with someone, and then they got to spin the wheel. So just kind of having that like little one-on-one combo was super cute. Additionally, with Latinos por Mi Comunidad named the Pi Chi Sorority Incorporated, we held a Activism is More Than Your Vote workshop. So while also advocating for people to go out and vote and getting people like registered or like offering rides to the polls, we also made it known to them that your activism and your like vote kind of extends beyond election day. It goes beyond this night. It's how you continue to show up for your community in those different ways.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. I was
Yeah.
gonna say definitely like advocation off that. Like we do tabling events as well as Rise. Thank you for making me mention that. Yeah, tabling. We also do collaborations. Rise University is not just at NC State; it's at Central. It's at other big universities. So we do like a lot of like Vote Fest wasn't just here; it was also at Central. It was at other places. So we kind of work as a whole. To just have ambassadors and field workers, field organizers all over. We also partner with Alpha Phi Alpha fraternity, as well as the other D9 chapters that help with MPHC. And then we also collaborate with the NAACP on campus. So shout out to them. And thank y'all, MPHC, as well as the D9 chapter. And we also like collaborate with like other organizations like BMI, and other organizations that could be on campus. So yeah, a lot of collaboration. Definitely is very innovative, and it helps us really get out there and also like networking to make a change. So as college students, as we can see, we're pulling it together. So you know what I mean?
Yeah. The journey like up to election night, I think just this semester in particular, it's been really interesting how like different facets of the student community has kind of come together and advocated and worked towards like a common goal just for voter turnout. Not even like making it like being, what's the word I'm I'm getting for it. Like nonpartisan. Be
Yes.
nonpartisan about it and about
Okay,
it
big
just being.
words.
Oh, thank you, thank you. It's the chas major in me.
For real, chess major.
You know, just getting those voters and young people out, and it's
Yep.
made a lot of cross sectionality between these different orgs that you normally don't see coming together, and I think that's been really beautiful.
I think it's beautiful even on Instagram that the fact that y'all see y'all, I know y'all see it in y'all notes section talking
Mhm.
about hey, you can stand in line for a party. Why can't you go stand in line to vote? Oh, you can stand there all that time. Okay. All right. You clock the T for real. But I just love to see the advocation through like everybody's story. Like, hey, go vote. Your vote matters. Like even the fact that you're not even doing it for an organization. You still as a student in the community, you're making sure that your fellows still vote. Like this is the most advocation I've ever seen for voting. I've never seen it this much ever.
And you mentioned like kind of collaboration between organizations on campus. Does this have you seen this same collaboration with like again like other campuses across North Carolina maybe, or like is it only here at NC State that you guys have seen like all of these collaboration like coming together from like kind of the same goals that you know like.
Are you asking like in regards to like voting or just in general for change?
In regards to voting specifically for like election season, but I guess like again in general advocation too.
Honestly, I could just say just definitely for like, I know I keep missing this organization, y'all, but listen, Rise is so big, like y'all don't understand. But yes, definitely with Rise, you just see different like implications of collaboration when it comes to the election. Seeing like the different D9 chapters and just advocation, just saying, hey, go vote. We have social media people that basically create and make TikTok videos. They make Instagram reels. They talk about all these things. People like, hey, your vote matters or whatever, doing implications of that. So I feel like it's just been everywhere as far as with Rise. But what would you say?
Definitely my Greek organization. We have a lot of chapters within NC themselves, and I frankly haven't collaborated with them a bunch until now. Like we've launched a bunch of different marketing campaigns between the schools, between the chapters, chatted with each other, like talked about voting and stuff like that. So it's definitely fostered like a greater togetherness within my sorority. With concerning SIRE, Students for Immigrant Rights and Equality, we've more so gotten more connected to our local Hispanic nonprofits in the Triangle area. Ones from Duke and Charlotte and all that. But more so that.
Yeah.
Cool.
And kind of touching more about local elections and just, you know, Raleigh and also like the state, North Carolina. I feel like a lot of people do see just like the top of the ticket and kind of overlook just local and state elections a little bit. How do you guys feel about this? Like, do you think that just the youth voters are like, do sometimes overlook like local and state elections, or is it kind of like the same? Just like, I guess.
Yeah, I get what you're trying to ask. I get what you're trying to ask. I definitely think for those young people who are not like deeply delved in politics, like that aren't part of a political advocacy org, aren't like a political science major, like the lower you go in the ticket, the less appealing it seems. No one's gonna think the Raleigh City Council at large is gonna impact their decision, or impact their future. Sorry, but it will in some way. You do live in Raleigh if you are registered to vote in Raleigh. Right. These people will have some hand in deciding your day to day. It may not be super noticeable as like governor or president, but it's still important because when you want to build your like ideal government or ideal representation, it's best to work from the ground up. Local elections turn a state blue, or turn a state. You know, it all begins from the ground up. I definitely do think that like the typical college student does ignore the bottom of the ballot and just fills in whatever party affiliation that they identify with, which is not entirely like the wrong way to go, but it's always best to be more educated. It's always best to explore those candidates around you because you never know.
Definitely I agree with what you said. I feel like people really just look at the presidential election instead of just the local as well, because you got to realize your local decides everything that's
Mm-hmm.
going on around you. And it's like you got to think when it comes to your medical, when it comes to your food insecurities and things of that matter.
Exactly.
It definitely does matter if you get all that money, especially y'all want that money. Okay.
Exactly. Mm-hmm.
And turning it a little bit more with like the issues that you mentioned at the beginning of the program, how does that issues kind of like resonate with North Carolina politics? And like I'm asking this in a way of like, what you mentioned, Annabelle, a lot of just like the younger generations do not see like below just like precedent,
Mhm.
like the top of the ticket. And in your guys' opinion, why do they need to like see all of this, and kind of like connecting it to like all of the issues that you mentioned in the beginning, like the issues that you were like immigration and all that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry, I keep looking at you like that because you said a mouthful, girl. I was like, hold up, like, wait a minute, let's break it down.
No, you're totally right. You're totally right. What I'm asking is just like kind of why local elections matter in the sense of like connecting it to the issues that you mentioned in the beginning of the program. Because we see a lot in just national politics, like all these issues are like at the center of the debate, but when you see it on like a local level, those issues are still there.
Yeah.
So why do local election matter in that sense?
I'm gonna keep this short and sweet. When it comes to the local government, with the issues I talked about, when it comes to financial aid and it comes to like having medical insurance and all of these things, it does matter because when it comes to the government, here in Raleigh and things of that matter, they make those decisions, and it's just like, y'all, who do y'all think y'all go to when it comes to you needing, when it comes to like, yes, financial aid is on federal, higher up seat. But at the same time, it's just like still, they still play a factor into making those decisions.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Recently, I took a tour with the Department of Political Science and International Studies, and we did visit like the NC State General Assembly, and we got to walk amongst all the desks of like the representatives and the House senators and stuff. There's a lot of Republicans in that General Assembly, and I did not realize that the balance was that uneven. And it really made me think like all these anti-immigrant bills, because that's frankly what they are, all these anti-reproductive rights bills, they come from this chamber because of this nasty divide, this nasty like imbalance. So definitely like when you pursue and you show interest in local elections, you are showing interest in those big national policies because it starts small. But exactly what Sanaya said.
Yeah. Well, is there anything else that you guys would like to add just like before we wrap up this program?
Yeah, just, everyone that's feeling anxiety, feel a little uneasy and everything about the election, trust, we feel it with you, 'cause I think about it all the time, when it comes to, being on campus and things. I'm like, yo, to start right on this campus, I'm already mentally preparing myself, you feel me? So I'm just like, look, don't start acting crazy or you feeling like you have the upper hand and other things. I also will say just be careful. Now this is like a very soft subject, but like with the KKK and everything, when it comes to Black women, please just be safe, y'all, out there. That needs to be handled heavily, seriously.
Just exactly what they were saying about just anxiety. Do not let yourself get overwhelmed, and just frankly trust the process. Trust the American voting system. It's not perfect, it's not ideal, but it's what's going to get the job done for us. And post-election, if you feel like you didn't do enough in this campaign cycle, put in that more work. Explore your fellow advocacy orgs on campus because we need you.
Be a change youth advocate, please.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, thank you guys so much for being here tonight with me. I appreciate it a lot. And yes, thank you.
All right.
You're welcome.